You did. You got here like a half a second early. It's amazing.
Ready to go.
Oh goodness. I actually accidentally originally put this in for 6 o'clock Pacific, not 5, and then I just fixed it. So hopefully someone will show up.
So you're right on time too.
I am. I'm right on time. Yeah, we both just made it.
Yeah.
Oops. Oh well. So I'm trying to I'm fixing it, I think. Or not. Oh well, whatever. Anyway, well, for anyone who may be joining us at some point, welcome to another Run Wild with Us and Ask Us Anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and Rise. And I'm here with Ben White, one of our absolutely amazing acquisition editors. And we're typically here when he decides to show up with with Peter Wright, another one of our incredible acquisition editors. And sometimes we're lucky enough to have Teehee Hazlett, who's our latest Rise acquisition editor. Anyway, so we are here to answer whatever questions you may have. Honestly, just ask. We'll see if we answer. But typically, if we're going to answer, we got answers. It may not be the right ones, but we've got answers. So, but typically, how this works is you go into whatever venue you're watching this in, and just go ahead and type into the comments section whatever questions you have. I will repeat said questions, and then we take turns in answering them. I mean, that's basically it. It's that simple. I know, who knew? So the cool thing about this is, at least as far as I'm aware, I don't think there are very many publishers that are doing this right now. I know there are a few authors who are, but as far as I'm aware, I don't think you're going to find many publishers. So, and what's also cool about this is all of us are also authors, and we've all been published in a multitude of ways. So you can ask us about, the publishing world, about the writing world, and, storytelling, anything. And like I said, we may have answers. It may not be the right ones, but they will absolutely be some form of answer.
Yeah. There's usually three of us here to give you three different perspectives. So together, the right answer is in there somewhere.
Or maybe they're all right. I don't know.
You choose.
You choose. It's like an alternate dimension, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's reader's choice.
It is. It's reader's choice.
Writer's choice. Either way.
Yeah. Viewer's choice. I don't know. Whatever you want.
Viewer's choice.
But and sometimes we're joined by my cat, which is why it may look like I'm petting my own lap, but I'm not. My cat happens to be a black cat, so she kind of disappears into the hemisphere of the projection in the background. So Caroline says, hey guys, you just have to read between the lines. Actually, I'd say considering who's answering these questions, that is absolutely true. Don McIntyre says, hey guys, hey Don, awesome to see you both.
And also, Don found us on a Wednesday.
That's true. I'm impressed that you guys remembered that we're here on Wednesdays now. That's huge. Now let's see me not screw up. I screwed up. I had originally set this up for us to link in at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then I went, wait, that doesn't look right. And literally 2 minutes before we were scheduled to go live, I went and fixed it. So right now, this is only on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, because I couldn't reset for Instagram and LinkedIn. So, oh well, tough noogies. You still get to see us on these venues. So, it's all good. And then we're going to have some exciting stuff we're going to announce in the next, couple weeks, something like that. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it'll give you guys
ironed out.
yeah, just little things that we need to iron out. But I think you guys are going to be really excited. I know we are, or at least I am.
I am.
Yeah, and you're it'll give you a lot more opportunities. I'll just leave it there, right? So it's very, very, very cool. So Ben, what have you been working on? What are you excited about?
I've been working on a novel. I'm about halfway through. I sent it to the author this week. We're going to meet on Friday with a Zoom call to make sure she knows what I've been doing and that it's okay and that it makes sense to her. And then we'll drive on through the second half together. Well, she'll follow me through the first half as I do the second half, and then I'll start over and follow her through. So it's that's a novel that is being edited along the process.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and then but on Saturday, the 1st of March, was the deadline for the first anthology of Running Wild Press poems, the poetry anthology. So Peter and I are going through the poems that we got, and we're making the acquisition decisions, and we'll be letting authors know this month probably.
Man, and you guys
we decided to do it in our spare time.
You got a lot of submissions. I mean, you got like what, 77 or something?
It shook out to be like 75 because we had some withdrawal, so it was like 73. But once we figured out the withdrawal, rookie mistake.
Yeah.
But some of those they're not just single. They're not single poems. We said send us 5 poems, and a lot of people did.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot.
We're looking for an anthology. At least 65 poems is what we're hoping for.
Okay.
Once we jump in and really get into the acquisition part.
Well, Rodney Hatfield asks, "Hey everyone, when will Monstrous Books start taking submissions? Will you be looking for full manuscripts? And if so, what genres and word counts are you interested in? I've got about half a dozen manuscripts lurking in the shadows, just waiting for the right home." Hey, Rodney. Oh my gosh, that is an excellent question. So my suggestion is, so that is completely owned and operated. I mean, he's part of our team. Don't get me wrong, James Aquilone. But I'd say you want to, and I'm going to put this in the chat. You want to go and check out his website because he posts whenever he's taking submissions on his site on the submission page. I just put in the chat a link to that submission page. If you feel like you have an idea or something that he would be really interested in, I believe he also has a contact. He has an About Us. Yeah, you can hit him up on the contact section and ask him, like, tell him about something that you're excited about, that you're interested in doing, and see what his response is. I'd say that's the best way to handle it. So, and he's a super, super nice guy and really easy to work with. So I'd say, it's definitely, if you got some ideas that you think are really killer, it's definitely worth reaching out to him. So, let's see. Oh, Dawn McIntyre asks, "Is this your first poetry anthology?"
It is the first time that we have multiple authors sending in poems. We've had poetry collections, but this is the first time with an anthology with multiple authors. Yes, this is the inaugural.
And on the theme of poetry, I just met with Kareen and Lee, who are the authors of a book of erasure poems about women, historic women, and It's absolutely incredible. I can't wait to get this out to you guys. What we're all hoping is to have it done in time for us to have a release date in like March for Women's History Month. And like I said, I it's really going to be a phenomenal collection. So definitely look out for that. And I just sent out a survey to all the authors whose works we accepted for a part of our Running Wild novella anthology and Rise novella anthologies. So I'll be meeting with those guys most likely later this week. And usually what I do is if it's multiple authors in an anthology, I'll have a kickoff so everyone has a chance to meet each other. You can all ask questions. I record it, and then that way we get the ball rolling. So, hey Peter, how you doing, young man?
Good. What ball are we getting rolling?
I was just talking about. So Ben was explaining how you guys are handling the poetry anthology, and I was just explaining how I was doing the novella anthologies. So,
cool.
Yeah, yep, cool, all good stuff. How are you doing? What have you been up to?
Oh, editing, writing, analyzing, submitting, the whole gamut. Reading some fun poetry. Trying to codify my thoughts around the novel that I'm editing. It had a real good twist ending that I think the way he has the characters in place could really add a lot of oomph to the story. So it's going to take some convincing, but I think we need to move some of his characters into more strategic places, if you know what I mean. Put more at stake for them. So,
cool.
But it's interesting. It's a novel that I can think about and enjoy thinking about while I'm not editing it. So it's just the world is that much fun, or that much more delightful to be a part of, even when I'm not reading it. So that's not easy to do. So I'm really proud of the author for doing that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Those are the ones that
you wish for.
What?
Those are the ones that you wish for.
Exactly.
I'm just knocking out. I said 1 hour in the morning is dedicated to writing, and then the rest is basically chaos. So.
So situation normal, all fouled up, right?
Yeah, exactly. I moved to the Ben model, except for Ben rolls over and starts writing. I wake up, I go, I work out, I come back, and then I write for an hour. So otherwise, I won't be able to see enough to do any writing justice. But yeah.
Isn't it like 4 or 5 in the morning you get up and go to the gym?
Yeah, I get up at 4:15.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy early here.
What? That's 7:15 where you are.
Yes, it is.
That's crazy early.
And most of us should be sleeping at that time. At least one of us is.
Okay. And I'm proud of you for that. I'm lucky if I can sleep in later. Like on weekends, I sleep in, and my version of sleeping in is usually about 5:30, 6, something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Discipline, habit, or just bad luck?
I'd say it's habit and discipline, because when I was a kid, I could sleep until like 9, 10 o'clock. But honestly, in part because for years I worked I'm still technically consulting, but I worked in consulting where you were traveling a lot, and you worked with like a lot of or I would work with a lot of teams that were across continents. So oftentimes the only time that you could actually meet would be like, crazy early in the morning in some instances. So you get used to it, you know. Although it is 4:15, because I've tried 4 and my body does not do 4. 4:15, it's like, all right, fine. Biatch, you're making me do this, sure, but 4 o'clock, nope.
Wow.
Yeah, nope. Ben, when do you get up?
Sometime between 2:30 and 3.
What?
I like to have the first poem of the day written by 3:30.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So what do you do? Roll over and go to bed as soon as you're doing this?
About an hour later, yeah. No, it's, I'll go to bed
Wow.
about 8 or 9, and 6 hours of sleep is plenty.
Mhm.
And then to roll out. And yesterday I had class. I had my Tuesday Thursday class met last night, and I didn't get home in time to watch Kentucky play basketball, so I had it recorded. So I watched it this morning, which is really cool because you can just spin through the commercials, and it only takes you an hour to watch a ball game.
All right, now I've got to ask. So, what got you getting up at like 2:33 in the morning?
What, ask it again.
Like, why do you get up that early?
Oh, because the goal is to have the first point written by 3:30.
Whose goal?
Mine.
There's something wrong with that goal.
That's just during the week. And on the weekends, I'll sleep in until 5.
Oh, geez.
All right, for anyone who's watching, you need to learn from this.
What not to do.
Or like what, I don't know, like, yeah, either one, what not to do, what to do, how people get shit done, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always like to start my day at home and not at work.
I don't know how to take that. If you're getting up at 3:30, I don't know how to take that.
2:30.
How would you be like if you
It's like
if you were
until 3:30.
if you
Full
were
day
doing,
shot.
if you were doing it from work, where would you be? Like, what does that mean?
I'll leave the house when I have to go over to campus. I'll leave the house about a quarter till 6.
Mm.
So I've already started my day.
Oh, okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah, because a lot of people can just get up, they roll out and they go straight to work, and that never did. I stopped doing that back in the 90s. I said, why start your day at work? You're more than your job. You got
That's
stuff
true.
to do.
Oh yeah.
You got poems to write.
Dang it. Caroline says, yeah, what not? I get up at 5 or 6 a.m. and that is early enough. Hey, you know, we've all got our thing.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you,
Mhm.
right? However, you're sure to make sure you get your stuff done. It's all good. Absolutely. All good.
Caroline, half the day's gone by then.
What, by 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, for you. I mean, come on. Woo. That's wicked. I don't know.
It'll
So-
be documented somewhere later. The habits of running wild presidents, acquisition editors.
Oh, wow. That would be awful.
I can see it now. It'll be a documentary.
Of what not to do with your life.
Well, it's another one of those choices. You get 2:30, you get 4, or with Peter, you can sleep till noon.
Yeah.
9:30 is a good time. 9:30.
9:30.
That's late enough. I haven't slept till noon since I was 17, and that was a regular thing.
Oh, yeah.
hmm
That's kind of cool.
But I've always stayed up till like 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning, so I need that time to sleep. So just adjusting the clock, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Ben mentioned that he was in the middle of editing a novel. What's the novel that you're working on, Ben?
It's called Sounds Like Trouble to Me.
Oh, cool.
And and it starts off with a lady shooting her husband,
Oh,
and
That would be trouble.
and then going to prison, and then now she's working with the lawyers because she's not real sure that she remembers how or why it happened. He deserved being shot, but she doesn't remember doing it.
oh wow. Okay.
So it's
What was
kind
the
of
title again?
What is it?
What's the title again, sir?
Oh, sounds like trouble to me.
Oh, okay.
Why can't she remember
Yeah.
it? Does she know?
I don't think we worked with her before, but well, actually, you had some correspondence with her,
Oh.
Jean,
Oh, okay.
Trustine.
Why doesn't she remember doing the shooting?
Oh, she's not sure because she's a corrections officer in a prison. They both are,
Oh,
and but he's kind of a domestic violence kind of guy, and she got tired of it one day, and but her gun, the gun that she has, she keeps a secret gun in the kitchen that she's not real sure how it got loaded because she never has it loaded, and she can't remember loading it, and so it's unraveling there. I'm about halfway through, and so far it's been the pieces falling in place very nicely. It's well written. There are no structural problems, and it's been
Wow.
it's been good to read. Except the opening scene, now that we're finding out she's not really remembering, and this is something to think about, your opening scene, because it probably started with, this is my idea of how I'm going to start it. And now as we progress through and she's not remembering it, the opening scene was kind of lucid and maybe too lucid for her because she sees it and we're in her mind seeing it with her. And but now she doesn't remember it. So that may be an issue. I'm keeping my eye on that. Make sure it works. I think it's an easy fix. It's just have him dead.
huh.
Have him on the kitchen floor.
Well, look
But-
out, because I'm
Yeah.
I'm about 24,000 words into the first draft of War Dogs, the third book in the Cure series. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you're probably gonna find a bunch of that. Get ready. Yep, a lot of unraveling is definitely happening.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the kind of a backstory is the way the women are treated in prison. And especially through the eyes of a corrections officer who is now in prison. And she was one of the prison guards in another prison, but now she's in the women's prison, and she's seeing it through a different set of bars, looking out instead of looking in.
Did they recognize her? Like, did the other
Not,
prisoners-
well, she wasn't one of the guards in the prison she's in. Some of the guards know her because it's a women's prison and men's prison, and it's a tight community. So the guards do. The women don't. The women who are incarcerated don't.
Got it.
So she's had to, they found out who she was. So they were kind of offsetting there at first, but she's had to make relationships in the prison.
No.
It's been really nicely done.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. And those relationships have come about naturally. It wasn't like forced. It was, hey, we're kind of all in this together, and this is what I can do. And there's some abuse going on, and they're trying to bring that to light. And the main character's lawyer is also well developed. She's got a family with her husband's in New York while they're in Boston, and her teenage daughter is a pain. And so it's a well-rounded, character-driven human situation novel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. So, well, Caroline says, didn't anybody ever hear of 8 hours of sleep a night for optimal function? No, Usually like 6 to 7's about it. So nope. And even that sometimes doesn't seem like enough. But meaning like I should have gotten up earlier, but there's just too much to do.
Way too much to do.
Yep.
So just a reminder, guys, if you're watching this and you have any kind of questions for any of us, just go ahead and toss it into the comments section of whatever venue you're watching this. Now, note, we're all acquisition editors, we're all editors, and we're all authors. Some of us are even poets, which I will not claim to be. So you've got a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge that could just spew forth with your respective questions. And we've all been around well, some of us have been around far too long, some may argue. So we've seen a lot. Let's just put it that way. I wasn't talking about you. Unless you want me to, then that's another.
Though. What am I supposed to take from that?
I think we're all probably around the same age.
That's okay.
Huh?
I'm getting younger every minute.
Obviously, yes. We can see that in your behavior.
Yes. Yeah, I saw something the other day. A creative adult is a child who survived.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, I think it's Banksy, the graffiti artist.
I've met him. He's actually pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Neat.
He did some special edition posters for a benefit that my husband and I went to when we first moved to LA. And we waited until the end of it because you're only supposed to get one poster a person. And there were 4 variations in total. And they still had some left over. So we went over to the guy who was in charge of handing them out. And we're like, is it okay if we get like, one of each? And he was like, because I'm sure he did not want to have to go home with all these posters. He was like, yeah, just take it. Just take it. Just don't say anything. So we have them actually there in our hallway, in our main hallway, and framed and everything. But yeah, Banksy's he's a really nice guy. So Don McIntyre says, I finally got the idea that I needed to finish a manuscript I've been struggling with for a few years. Now I have to get back in there and finish it. Instead, I'm knitting. Well, that's not on me.
Don, I recommend you get up at 2:30. Who wants to knit at 2:30?
Who wants to move at 2:30? Come on, man. That's Don, you invited that. I'm sorry. Well, it's all about prioritizing, figuring out what is it that you really want to be doing. Where do you really want to get done? And if you'd rather knit little bootsies, then dude, that's on you.
Yeah, but when you're knitting, you're thinking. You've got the story in the wetware. It just needs to come down into the onto the paper.
Sure.
Every stitch is a character.
Mm-hmm. Every stitch is a character. Okay. My cat responded to that, by the way. So I have no idea how that's relevant to cat words, but hey.
Well, if you're knitting, your mind's at peace. So your other part of your mind is able to think about things, even if you're not constantly aware that your mind is thinking about them. It can come up with plot solutions or story ideas or arcs kind of thing.
Mm.
And not only do I make sense to your cat, I make sense to Peter.
And that's the most important.
Just making sense. That's why I keep logging in. There you go.
Don says, at least you're not drinking, Don. Ask Hemingway. Honestly, I'm sure all of us are familiar with this, that at every conference, there's this thing called BarCon. And we could say that it's Hemingway inspired. Let's just say my first, I guess, that's not true, but one of my most memorable instances of BarCon was at AWP in Philadelphia. I think it was in Philadelphia. It was either Philadelphia or New York. And I didn't realize at the time that martinis were basically pure alcohol.
You can run your car on them, yeah.
And I think it was a vodka martini, if I remember correctly. And the guy did it so well that I think I ended up drinking like 3. And some friends I was there with were like, Lisa, stop. And I'm pretty sure I passed out. And when I woke up, they had all left. So I'm sure they tried to like get me out of the booth we were sitting in the bar. And I was like, no, I'm not done.
That's like what Ben does at work.
I'm still going. Caroline's like, but they're so good. Yeah, I don't actually drink vodka anymore. That might be the reason. At least gin, it's booze. You know what I mean? Like, but some vodkas are just so smooth, especially when they're, completely on ice, that, I mean, you could chug that thing and not really think about it. So.
Are martinis like Long Island iced teas for kids?
Kinda.
Like you're not supposed to know how lethal they are until after your second or third one.
Or fourth. Yeah.
And you're walking up to the bar and the bar keeps moving.
Caroline's like, especially with oysters on the half shell. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think, I mean, definitely you should never have like 3 vodka martinis in the span of like 2 hours. If you want to stay awake and be able to walk properly, it's probably a bad idea. Either reduce the number of vodka martinis you have, or expand the time span in which you're having them. Something to create some kind of like lengthening of the alcohol impact on your body. So, or eat bread. You could do that too.
Bread.
That's just cheating.
So, well, yeah. Isn't that why so many people do like pizza and, whatever booze? Or like, something that has a high carbohydrate portion to it. So it just like absorbs some of it.
Yeah, martinis and greasy pizza.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I know what we're doing the next time we go hang out. Caroline's like, no, 1 is a good limit. I don't know who you hang out with, but not in my world.
1 is a good start.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 1 is a good start. Actually, when I was at the San Francisco Writers Conference, everyone was into drinking like fruity drinks, and I don't usually do fruity drinks. And they would call them martinis, but it was really like, 2/3 something that involves sugar, and then the booze, which normally you're basically asking for a massive hangover by doing that, right? But I didn't realize that was the composition of the martini until I had already had like 2, and then I went and I read the what was actually in it, and I was like, I'm going to die. So French fries were then involved to help soak it up, but yet another TMI moment. Caroline's like, yuck, no, Peter. See, dude, you've been called out. How dare you suggest more than one? That is
So I got a
just
question.
awful. Not really. Huh?
I got a question. So the novel that I'm working on, that I'm editing, the main character is told from a first-person point of view, present. She seems very disaffected throughout the story, to the point where it's almost calling attention to itself, the fact that she doesn't react to situations even as they become perilous to her. Now, is this something you guys have come across before, or is this something that can be considered a not a fight or flight mechanism, but a protective shield that maybe the character puts up because she's been so hurt and so abused her entire life that she refuses to let things get that close to her, to get that near to her, even at the hands of a physical beating by a we'll call it a drug dealer. I mean, is that something that makes sense to you? Because this is something I really want to dig into to see, are you avoiding this emotional commitment for a reason? I want to ask the author, or is this just how the character is perceiving her world to keep everything at arm's length until she finally explodes? But because everything is at arm's length until she explodes, the explosion isn't really that believable, if that makes sense.
No.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep. Peter, you go. Peter, Ben, you go first. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, if it's got you as the reader wondering, it's in danger. Because it's in danger of not being realistic, like you say, or not being clear that that's what the character is doing, and because now you're wondering and not. I think there still needs to be a connection with that character that is very well understood by the reader and not having to guess. And because you're about halfway through.
Oh, I've read it. I read it all the way through. I just haven't edited it the whole way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you've got to the end of it and you're still having that question, that I would say that's an issue. Because now, if it was an issue going in halfway, but then okay, now I know what was going on, that's fine at the end. But if you got to the end and you're still wondering why this character is just almost a neutral voice in through the narration, that might be an issue.
That's very poignant. Yeah, that could be the case.
Yeah,
very easily.
Because then I think the author is projecting or being projected upon by the character. I don't want to deal with what they're dealing with, so I won't. And I won't do it because the character is not going to do it either. Right. and so I think there's a potential missed opportunity there, of course, and of what that character, what the narration's role is within that character.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I agree, and I was actually going to go there too, Ben, where if they're doing this intentionally as craft, then it needs to be hinted at that's why this is happening. So like in real life, I know I do that. Like if I'm in a traumatic situation, I tend to suppress my emotions, but I'm aware that I'm suppressing my emotions, right? And if it's something that, like, especially like when I'm in mourning, I'm aware that I can't cry, and then but then it'll pop up like 3, 4, 6 months, a year, whatever later, and all of a sudden like the weirdest things will trigger it, right? But I'm aware of it. Like it's not like I don't know that I'm not responding, like I'm not emotionally responding. It's more so that I just can't do it. So I think maybe she could hint at the fact that I'm assuming the author's a she, but she could hint at the fact that the main character is suppressing her emotions, and have by having her note actually even get angry at herself that she can't cry, or get angry at herself for not responding. You know what I mean? Because in our society, that's not considered normal, whatever normal is. Or even have somebody else within her immediate sphere who knows her well comment on it, right? Like even say, and like I know for me personally, I've had times where, like when my dad died when I was like, how old was I? 30, 34, something like that. 32 maybe. I just couldn't cry. And I had people who would come to me that, honey, it's okay. You can cry. It's all right to be upset. And I just get upset at the fact that I couldn't get upset, and like when they'd ask me like, well, why can't, why aren't you crying? Like I was some kind of alien, and, my answer was, well, my father was an atheist and he's been preparing me for this since I was a child. So, like I can't fit the construct that you've created within your own, culture, which of course then just pissed off a whole bunch of people, but but gives
It'd be a really cool scene in a novel.
Yeah. I mean, we'd get a laugh out of it, but I don't know. But it's something that it gives the reader some kind of fulfillment, I think, to both of your points, right? That that will then enable them to buy in to the character more, and even potentially empathize for the character.
Okay, because she's in a sort of a, I mean, I'm assuming that everybody knows what anxiety is, about worrying about the sky is going to fall, everything, the worst is going to possibly happen at every turn. And she's not anti that, whereas everything's cool, nothing bad is going to happen. She's just sort of in between, for lack of a better word, a twilight zone, where she's aware of the risks, she's aware of the situation, but she's also unaware of the fact that she's not responding to it, that she's not letting it affect her, that she's got this great job in this museum, and yet her body has the welts and scars of being beat with a leather belt because her sister went missing and her sister owes somebody a lot of money. So she's got these scars under her clothes, that close to the surface, at this redeeming job, and she's not putting the connection together that she's that close to revealing her true self to her employer. Like that. There's not even a vague connect in that situation. There's not even so much to even disconnect, if that makes sense. I think that would be first and foremost. What if my sleeve slips? What if my button falls off? I mean, that's moderately extreme anxiety. But if she rolls up her sleeve by accident, and all of a sudden there's this big, huge welt on her arm, her boss is going, "What the hell's that? Who are you? Who do we hire?" And put her whole life in jeopardy again, which is how she's lived her entire life, is in quasi jeopardy. So that's my conundrum.
Well, maybe just have it where she's somebody else of like, not necessarily, because remember, if she's working in a museum, she's surrounded by all kinds of people, right?
For sure.
So have somebody who's not necessarily of, not her employer, note like, hey, you don't seem right. Something's going on, and have her, try and talk her way out of it, or do something like
to expose the kind.
Right, exactly. So it doesn't have to be something where it's like she's about to get fired, right? It can be as simple as somebody just empathizes with her, and it forces her to actually acknowledge, and I honestly, it would be interesting to see what the character does in response to that empathy, right? Because she could respond 100 different ways, right? She could break down crying. She could be angry, like, how dare you ask me about my private life, right? I mean, I don't know the character, so
Right.
but it would be really interesting to see what happens to it. Now, the other conundrum with this is, how does this fit within the narrative structure itself, right? Because if it's she just blows up randomly at somebody and then it's never really addressed again, right? Like that,
Right.
that won't work either, right? So it's like, how can this response be both in line with whatever the narrative is, as well as in line with the characters?
Exactly. Right.
Mhm.
That's why I'm asking these questions. Yeah. No, that's great points.
As you were reading it, you want her to do something to get out of the neutral zone, the twilight zone, and whether it's become self-destructive and with through the behaviors that you see, or whether it's to show the strength. And I think the way you read it is not going to be unusual with the way any other reader takes it, and it says, why do I care about this character? And that goes back to the empathy, even though Don said it may open up the floodgates for her to have
Right.
somebody
Exactly. What Don
empathize
said.
with her.
Yeah.
But it could shock her out of it to where she goes either way, towards the strength or towards the self-destruction, and which would be real. I think that would be real. Either way, either one of those.
And it doesn't have to be a continuous trigger, right? Remember, if part of this is a hint to the reader that she's aware, and that later on she is going to, Peter, what you were describing, like, her emotions will burst out like in the last third or the last tenth of the novel or whatever, right?
Exactly.
But it just needs to be enough that she knows what's going on with herself, and she just talks her way out of it. This doesn't have to be a big explosion, right? But I'd say when you're reading it as a reader, look at, like, where do you feel like you're starting to say, well, this seems like bullshit because she's not responding, right? And that's probably the moment where your typical reader is going to say the same thing, and look for that opportunity to have that engagement.
Right. Yeah, the logical reason why she's acting like that, I mean, there is no logical reason other than the fact that she's been a pinball her entire life, bounced around, abusive mother who turned to Jesus after being an alcoholic and doing all sorts of weird shit her entire life. So these are all very, very good points, very salient points. I guess what brings to mind is, I mean, all the pieces are there in the novel or in the story to draw out, to elicit these different emotions and these different pieces of her character, nuances of her personality. And I mean, that's part of what one of the most fun parts about being an editor is to pull these out and to kind of like use kind of like a soundboard, adjust this, raise this, lower this kind of thing, to the point where you're making the most use of all the characters, their emotions, and their purpose within the story, even when the author doesn't immediately pick up on those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because there's two characters that are main characters that he's having included in the story, but could be so much stronger, so much bigger, and have so much more of an impact with just minor adjustments. I mean, yes, it's going to be terrible for the reader to experience what happens to these characters, but it'll ultimately lead to a point where the story makes sense from a holistic point of view. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So, but no, thanks for the help with the emotional content of the main character, because this is something that's been gnawing at me since I first started reading the book, and this going like 4 or 5 weeks now. So it's good to hear. Have a sounding board. Thanks.
No, that makes sense.
Would it make sense to have some internal dialogue within that character?
Oh, she's all internal dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah, she's all internal dialogue. She lets you know exactly how she's feeling and what's going on, and how she feels about what's happening and everything.
It's just that she's not emotionally responding to the trauma she's experiencing around her. Got it.
Like the fact that she's overly traumatized to the point where even she doesn't realize it, at which point the narrator has to come out and say, shed some light on something that the main character doesn't even realize about herself.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to your point though, it's you need some kind of hint, right?
Gotta
That
have an window, yeah.
yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be big, right? To your point again, it just has to be something where she's either she acknowledges that she's having problems emoting, or someone else is like, hey, what the hell's going on? I think to what you were talking about with all the scars.
Right.
Yeah. And she has to, cover it up in some way. So no, that makes sense.
I mean, it's part of why we read, is to see the emotional life of others.
Mhm.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, people don't buy. It's so funny. There are all these like classes on like, how to sell and how to write and, blah, blah, blah. And it all comes down to, people get engaged in something because they feel emotionally part of it, right? They don't look at it and say, ooh, look, Mickey Mouse. I've always wanted to see a human-sized mouse with buttons on his stomach. Like, no. There's some kind of humor. There's some kind of,
Connection.
Yeah, and then it causes an emotional connection. And you say, oh, yeah, of course, Mickey Mouse, of course, or like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember the first time I heard of that, and I thought that is the most stupid thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. I hadn't seen the cartoon or the comic strip, right? I had no idea, but I was like, someone made a bunch of teenagers into turtles, and these teenagers were also ninjas. What the hell? Were they smoking crack? Like, this doesn't make any effing sense, right? And then I I think I saw the cartoon, and I was like, okay, this is hilarious. This is why people actually are like really into it. It's got nothing to do with it being, ninjas or turtles, right? It's just, it's well written and it's funny, like he knew his target audience. So I don't know why I just leaned into, funny pieces, but anyway. We could do Aliens, why Alien is considered one of the top horror movies of all time. Again, it engaged people so that they were like, oh my God, I've got to see that over and over and over and over and over again. So for me, it was The Count of Monte Cristo. That was the first novel that I read when I was a kid that I was like, oh my God, this is my all-time favorite ever. And I think I read it like 4 times in a row. But again, it was an emotional engagement. I didn't think, I've always wanted to read about a count from Monte Cristo. Like, that would be so cool. That does not happen. No. Or I don't know, maybe you guys did. I have no idea. So that's a great question. What made you say, what's one of your favorite books, and why did you feel like, why is it one of your favorites?
Favorite book? I guess for a short story, I mean, Edgar Allan Poe's The Beating Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was so internal and nothing was happening except the chaos within the narrator's mind. And he thought everybody in the whole world, everybody in the room knew what was going on. Everything knew what was happening. It was all happening in his own head. And just the total mental destruction that he did to himself. I mean, I must have read that multiple times just to see how he kept going at himself and how he kept arguing against himself and arguing with somebody that wasn't there. And then, I mean, it's just a phenomenal story. Just a huge Poe fan. But that's what I'll read over and over and over again. Guilt, exactly, Dawn. Yep.
Yeah.
How about you, Ben?
I was thinking,
So.
well, back to the original question Peter had was, and Caroline mentioned it, there's got to be a logical reason why she's acting like she is, or the reader loses interest. And that made me think of, we'll probably get letters for this, but Hemingway characters, if the style of writing wasn't there, we would not care about Hemingway characters. Because they're all drunk and their issues are self-imposed, and you want to reach in and say, snap out of it. Go home. Go home. And
Well,
no, this is,
like
I'm
that.
gonna just drink my way into self pity and I'll stay here. No, go home. But
Oh,
then so that that led me right to the East of Eden, where I had seen the movie with James Dean, of course.
Yep.
But that is such a small portion of that book.
mm,
And Steinbeck, his way of writing and his twist of phrases. And then there's Mr. Lee in East of Eden, and he's the Chinese manservant in the house, and he's not in the movie even. And so you don't know him, but he's one of the most interesting characters there is, because there's tension around everything he does, because he's Chinese in California in that time period. And so there's that attraction to that character. And then I thought of James Carlos Blake, The Friends of Pancho Villa, which is a series of perspectives from the Friends of Pancho Villa telling a story. And at the end of the book, it's all fit together. The whole history of Pancho Villa is fit together by the perspectives of the people who knew him, and put it together. So it was very well done. It's not easy, because you got to do like a testimony for every character's got to be different. Every chapter was a character telling the story, and they all had to be different from different perspectives and different motivations that put it all together.
And what attracted you to it? Like, what made you say, this is something I want to complete? I see what the ending is.
Yeah, and well, it goes back to the history and being interested in Pancho Villa's life. And he was a prisoner, he was a peasant, but then he was a general because he was in jail and read Cervantes and said, okay, this is, life is more than just doing what I'm doing. And so anything that related to that story was a historical interest, probably started me off on it. And then you see the characters around him and the way they saw him and the way he saw himself. He said he had many wives because he respected women. But so he married them all.
Okay.
The mind said, okay.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. But, and they go. Then you find Viva Zapata by Steinbeck as well. The screenplay. He said, I've never done a screenplay, but I'm working on this. And then they made a movie out of that with Marlon Brando. But it was still that same revolution time setting. So it's just I think the historical interest was the draw.
Got it. Okay. Well, guys, we only have a minute and a half, something like that. I don't know if there's anything else that we want to cover or talk about. And don't forget, if you're watching this and it's the recording, go ahead and put your questions in the comments section, because we do check during the week to see if we have more. Actually, I get notifications if we get any kind of questions or comments. So please feel free. Go ahead, leave us a note. Otherwise, have an amazing night. Dawn, you have a great night too. And as always, we will see you next week. So thanks, guys.
Have a good week.
See ya.